All right, everybody, we will be live in a few moments with Order of Velvet Bite. Hang tight, won't be much longer. Remember, subscribe to the channel, click that thumbs up, and save it to a playlist to help support the show. I will be with you in just a moment. All right, everybody, here we are live. I just played a little bit of music for a little while. Now I'm shaking my desk up, just making sure everybody had time to come in because I know that YouTube doesn't always let everybody know when the show is streaming or the stream will start and it won't send notifications right away or people just aren't around. So I thought I'd give it a little bit longer of an intro. Whew! How's everybody doing? Um, my week was productive. I got a lot of stuff done. I've just been organizing, cleaning. I went and donated blood. How very vampire of me. I never donated blood before, so I thought, why not? They're always low on supply, so do a lot of the places like where I come from in Canada, you don't get paid to donate blood at all. It's not a thing, and apparently that's a thing here. That they pay you to donate blood, and I didn't even know that. And I thought, well, they were saying they were always low on supply and they always need donors. So I thought, well, I'll go do it. And then they're like, yeah, we pay you when you come in. I'm like, oh, well, that's really nice. I get to do something nice, help people out if they need blood supply, and then I get a little tiny bonus. So it was my first time ever, and I'll tell you, I was pretty exhausted for a few days after doing it. And then you're literally giving like what, 20% of your blood supply? So it was a full donate, red and white kind of plasma cells. And then if I follow up, um, if I follow up, I think they only do like just plasma, which is mostly water. John aside in the room, he says, I think the vampires are the one doing the taking blood, not the donating. I was the vampire's victim, I guess. I was donating in a safer way than someone biting your neck, right? So it's been an interesting week. And then, of course, during the week, I started to notice that people like Candace Owens, and we're going to play her video in a little bit, so we have some context of what she said about this, that they were talking about Project Looking Glass. I thought, this is really weird. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit suspicious now that mainstream people like Candace are talking about Project Looking Glass, because it's very much considered a conspiracy theory, even though there's a lot of whistleblowers that have come out and people talking about it. I'm a little bit suspicious about it, but for those of you who don't know what it is, who aren't really delving deep into the conspiracy theories, I'll kind of line it up for you and give you an idea in general of what it is. Then we'll go look at what Candace says about it and why she brought it up and what she thinks has to do, because it gets into MK Ultra, these sort of gateway schools, probably even Project Montauk, Project Often, MK Often, all that kind of stuff. And essentially, let's go find, we'll give you there's a couple of things. If you go and look on it on Google, you're going to find a few things on Project Looking Glass. So there was also a 2000 CIA research project on team intelligence using spy simulations. They say it's not future seeing. And in alternative theories, there's a supposed device for viewing past future, sometimes linked with the CIA's gateway process and psychic research like remote viewing and or Stargate project. Declassified CIA documents available via FOIA mentioned looking glass related to psychic phenomena, remote viewing reports, and historical intelligence, but not confirming time viewing technology. There are also, I'm going to let you know, probably documents that exist that are still classified. And I'm thinking, if they've released stuff, if the CIA or any of they could be DARPA, who knows who's doing it, right? DARPA is the one who makes up a lot of technology or steals ideas and then makes up the technology for war and stuff like that. They could have it, because we could say, oh, the CIA is doing it, and all they have to do is say, no, they're not, because it's DARPA or some other organization, right? So I think you have to be a lot more specific. But in this show today, we're going to go over Candace. We're going to go talk about Trump and his uncle, John Trump, with Tesla. I'm going to revisit that one. We're going to talk about Trump, Globe, Palantir. We're also going to go into which I find more fascinating because there's more information on it, the Russians' experiment with a type of looking glass and what they found out. And there's a lot of information out there about it, actually a lot more than with the CIA. And one of the reasons the CIA was probably looking at things like psychic stuff or seeing into the future is because they knew that the Russians were looking at it, and they were, of course, supposedly always threatened by communism, by anything that threatened, the new empire in charge, which to be honest with you guys, I don't think it's the empire that we think it is. I think it was probably mixed with a lot of different factors, including ex-Nazis, including, you know, capitalists, corporations. I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of people that are running around looking at ways to dominate globally and defeat communist parties. The irony is, and I always said this, and I said this in the show I did for the subscribers about psychic backlash is sort of what you resist persists, what you focus on, you kind of make more of it. And you know, when you have to war, I gotta stop hitting my desk here. When you have to war against factors in other nations, oftentimes you end up becoming very much like them. So as you globalize, you may be authoritarian and take over, but you're also influenced and affected by those other elements. So I gotta move my chair away from the desk because it keeps knocking and making the camera unbalanced, and we don't want that today, do we? So let's go and look at what Candace actually said, why she brought it up, and why are people talking about it? I mean, people have always talked about it. I've heard it from my husband. I've heard it in conspiracy theories. But why is a big podcast like Candace talking about it? And of course, it is in reference to Charlie Kirk. We're going to go have a boo. And Charlie Kirk, of course, was in these special schools in Chicago area. He was, there we go. We got Candace on here. So this is basically Candace Owen exposes CIA's Project Looking Glass, a technology stolen from ancient Sumerian civilization that allows the deep state to predict future outcomes. She explains how these powerful entities steal advanced technologies, hoard them, and gradually release aspects to the public while maintaining control. And I think Candace believes that when they accessed Project Looking Glass and they sort of looked into the future, that they saw something that they didn't necessarily like. And their whole objective is to undo that. And we'll get into what I think are the consequences of that for everyone, but let's listen to Candace talk about it first.
Glass. Essentially, there were these whistleblowers, like I told you, in the military, which they stole, of course. Please. As we discussed yesterday, the Satanists kind of taking and reintroducing these things. First, they keep them to themselves, they hoard these things, and then they kind of give us certain aspects of technology as time goes on. So they steal this piece of technology and they incorporate it into a computer, and suddenly they're apparently able to predict, able to look into glass, so to speak. The Sumerian culture was known for their outcomes. I mean, the amount that you would have, and then also fathom in your mind that
Yeah, and not only the people that are Satanist, as she calls them. Someone said they can't hear her, it's crackling. Okay, so not only the people who are Satanist, as she calls them, have access to power, but they're seeing the future. And maybe they don't like what they're seeing. Maybe what they're seeing shows an outcome that they can't change, because I think the idea is that all timelines eventually collapse into one possible outcome. And once they become that singularity point, there's no going back. You can't undo it. There's nothing you can do. And so it seems almost like The idea is they saw that singularity point, they saw it happening, and they've been rushing to prevent it. And you'll hear Elon Musk, he's talked about the singularity point a lot on X, on Twitter. I've heard him say we've already reached the singularity point. So they're really well, they're really well aware of this. And look, Elon isn't some genius, by the way. He's an actor. He doesn't really tell you the truth about him and where he came from in South Africa, but he's not some genius that made all this stuff. A lot of times they steal it. Same with email. They didn't create email, they stole it from people. They're thieves of real ingenuity. And what it seems like they want to do is cement it so that they lock everybody down into their system so they can't be the innovators. Really, that's one element. I'm sure there's many different elements of it. But they've seen something. That's the crux. They've seen something. They're afraid of what they saw, and that's why they're pushing all these elements out. That's why you see them have their dates and their times and their plans like 2020, 2025, 2021, 2030. You kind of always get this sense. John said he couldn't hear her. I'll give you the link to that that video. Oh, I gotta go to the Candace show. For some reason, it wouldn't load. I'm gonna try to give you a link to that video for Project Looking Glass. So you can watch it, hear what she says. Her last show, she talks about this. Her last live stream, she absolutely talks about this. I'll pop it up and you guys can go, if you didn't hear it, if it was crackling too much for you, it sounded fine here, but I'll pop it into the chat and you can go check it out. Candace made this in connection with Charlie Kirk, because when you dig into Charlie Kirk, we're not talking some normal kid. We're talking a kid who was schooled in one of these high-end schools. I forgot the name of it. We'll go back there. He's schooled, but he's also groomed and he's got handlers. It's so controlling. They have to handle everything. They have all these people handling and controlling everything. Nothing's organic. Organic happens naturally. It's agreement between people. Naturally, it forms naturally. You don't have to have agents and people managing behavior nonstop to keep it going. This system that we're in is fake. That you just see nothing but handlers happening by either the CIA, the music industry, in Hollywood, in corporations, in sports, in news, in I could just keep going on. There are handlers left, right, and center, and that tells me it's like some kind of weird program that is not go look Matrix style. It's to inspire fear, to control people, but it's about controlling how information comes, how people perceive things. Do you guys remember one time Bill Gates? I'm going to be not directly quoting him, but it was something along the lines. And this was back in the 90s or early 2000s. He said, well, what we have to fear is the kids sitting in their basement, basically coming up with new ideas and new programs. That'll be the future threat. And he literally said that. Something along those lines. That it wouldn't be established companies, it would be people who are not in the system and controlled, basically young people thinking, being, individual. This is another reason why they want to do stuff like handling with Charlie Kirk. According to Candace, Charlie Kirk had such a phenomenon that he, when he would go for jogs and runs at night, he would have like street lights flicker on and off. I know people who have that effect. I've effect in a different way, but we're going to get into towards the middle of the show a Russian experiment where they did experiments way back and I don't know, 60s, 70s, probably 50s, post World War II, they were doing these early experiments, and they would create these environments where they would have a person go into a room that they had. It was like they almost had them totally isolated from all electromagnetic frequencies, stuff like that. And they would have them stay in there for as long as possible. It would be filled with dread, nausea. Like the experience of that initially is like really scary for humans, but then once you get through that, you go into this other realm where you're like enlightened and you feel better, and you start seeing things. You start seeing the future even. You start having phenomena all over the town happening. Orbs, UFOs, spooky phenomena. Strange things starts happening when they do these experiments. And it would appear to me from looking at things, the Russians had a better outcome of research with this, but they were also more open-minded. They were also more open forward with their information, unlike the CIA. And I think there's something to that. But one of the reasons why I thought, I've got to talk about Project Looking Glass is because I've said this on past shows where I always had this suspicion. Lucas Williams, welcome, Lucas. I always had this suspicion that we were less psychic because we were being interfered with all the technology, that it was blocking our natural psychic ability. And I mentioned that when electricity wires were first being strung up in cities like London and New York, the people at the time were complaining that they couldn't hear God, they couldn't talk to God anymore. When these wires were being put up, it was interfering in their spiritual communication with whatever they are calling God. They started to complain about this. And I thought, well, that's really interesting that it coincided with electricity wires being strung. And I think that's just continued. Now, there's a lot of advantages to having electricity, but it affects things. And we've got to realize that all of these, the building of all these layers of technology has, whether it was that way at first or not, I don't know, but it's resulted in control. And whoever controls that technology, and they're interfering with people's psychic ability, and the natural world that's organic, that we might experience more ghosts in, we might experience more phenomena, or we might have more psychic communications. They're interfering with that. Therefore, they begin to control how that stuff gets passed on, or how people perceive that. And I think when they were doing Project Looking Glass, it ties into some of this stuff, because they, like, if you can have that technology, if it's true that they saw the future in some kind of weird orb, if that is true, yeah, immense power. But also, there's the theory that what you actually affect it too. You affect what you see. You're interacting with it. So it's really convoluted. It's not so straightforward. So like what you see, it's like when Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars, I'm so sorry for the Star Wars reference, but when he starts having dreams about his wife dying, he sees that and he's like, oh, I have to prevent that. But what ends up happening is, in his seeing of the future, he acts out things to try to prevent that kind of singularity point that results in his wife's death. And he does everything he does ends up causing it. So I think that's a phenomena that might be happening here. And that's why we see them getting so aggressive. We see United States right now taking really aggressive measures to expand and dominate certain places in the world. You can say it's Trump, but it's not really Trump. Trump's not calling anything. The deep state's telling him what to do, just like they tell everybody what to do, no matter what. But I think they're really in a race for something, and I don't know where it ends up. I'm not going to try to control it, because I figure if I try to control it, I may actually make it worse. Sort of just, I don't want to say go with the flow of corruption, but unplug yourself at least from this stuff. So self-fulfilling prophecy, absolutely, but it's a warning of it doesn't matter what you do. It's almost like, well, it's written in the stars. So of course it's going to happen. But I think it's the elites, it's their fear of losing control, of like their structure not controlling everybody. So they push for more control. And then the faster they push for more control, the more people look and go, "Hey, this doesn't feel natural anymore. This feels really strange. What's going on?" And people start waking up and looking into things, and it actually makes what they don't want happen. If they kept going along at a slower pace and not putting out so much stuff, it probably be better off for them. But they're just being too aggressive, and they're too afraid, and they're putting out too much fear. Like, it's fear, porn, chaos, just crazy identities, both left, right, and center. It's too much, and people are noticing. They're doing the noticing. But the gateway programs tie into this deeply. And for those, I'm sure I've mentioned gateway before on this show, but we're not going, look, there's not any way that we're going to get into all of this on the show. You can look up stuff yourself on Gateway, on Project Looking Glass. What they'll tell you officially is the Gateway programs are foundational college courses, right? They'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's just this," but it's like basically what they're doing is they're doing all these SATs, they're doing all these tests, they're scoping out young people, basically trying to find these intelligent people so they can weave them into these programmings for experimentation, for these special schoolings. And it's very unorthodox. Like with Charlie Kirk, apparently they weren't doing just, English and math and algebra and spelling. They were like getting them to monitor their dreams, getting them to do dream work, getting them basically to do law of attraction, manifestation, like really strange stuff. And all of them would have had handlers. And I think the really talented ones, they basically kept for future. It's probably like Project Montauk would come into this as well. They kept them for future use. And one of those ways you can do that is to brainwash them, have a handler, abuse them, sexually abuse them, traumatize them. Trauma makes psychic stuff happen more. People who are traumatized tend to have psychic stuff. I have a relative that is a clear example of that. She wasn't in any of these programs, but she had a abusive stepmother and father, and just classic stuff. Even trauma of a parent dying, or trauma in the womb, trauma at birth, all sorts of different sexual trauma. I'm probably going to get in trouble from YouTube for saying that word, but it is what it is. There's all this, but Gen X really got to experience that. There was a 1980s research project on consciousness using audio techniques, the gateway tapes. But there was a lot of education programs that offered advanced, challenging learning for high ability students. But as with MK Ultra, these things are put off as, hey, we have these advanced courses for your students. But what they really are is the system and the elites looking for special kids that they can adapt in and use. Maybe they use them as a patsy. Maybe they MK Ultra them, so they're like some kind of sleeper cell. Maybe they're trafficking them. Maybe they put them into politics. Maybe they put them into acting. Remember, Marilyn Monroe was an orphan. She had lots of trauma. A lot of people believe she was an early form of MK Ultra. So many of these kids were basically not realizing that they were being used. Go look at the movie Firestarter by Stephen King. Classic example. Project Montauk, all that stuff right there, where they're experimenting with children. They're isolating them from normal population and doing sketchy stuff to them. And almost like a cult would. to control and destroy them. Now, how does that tie into Project Looking Glass? Well, they're probably doing experiments on kids, not only with just some kind of sphere or globe that can see into the future, some kind of Palantir, like in Lord of the Rings. Ironically, we have a company called Palantir that's about surveillance and controlling everything. But they're also, they're doing experiments to see who's psychic and how you make psychic, how you make psychic spies, how you make psychic soldiers. And can you have a device? Can you take that organic form and turn that into something you can replicate? Some machine, some program, some globe, some mirror, some enclosure. Can you create it so that you can see certain things into the future? And then the question is, what is time? How is it formed? Uh, you know, um, do we even understand it? Is there really a linear time? And then a lot of people say, no, there's not. Time is all now. Everything's happening in the now. There's no such thing as our concept of time that we have. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 24/7, that kind of time. That only exists here, and still it is a made up construct. It helps. What does it do? What does the clock do? It helps organize people and uniform them into doing stuff all at the same time. It's a control structure, and it has its benefits, but it's a control structure. So you're no longer necessarily just doing things with the seasons and the natural rotation of the planet. You're doing things at 12:05, 12:10, 12. It and yes, it has a harmonizing effect. It makes the technology that advances and comes forward work, like trains and schedules and business meetings and all that stuff, and when you're going to go to school. But it really pulls people from the organic into a man-made structure. And I know that's hard to conceive, and I don't think we're all just going to get up and abandon it so that, hey, done, not going to happen. And I don't see that as happening. But it certainly is a construct that we can't understand that it's a construct because we're so used to it, that pulled us out of the natural construct of rotation of the planets, rotation of the earth around the sun, rotation of the earth on its axis with the moon, all that stuff. That's natural and organic. Now we have this really rigid time structure, which has developed over many years. When was the first clock? Like General Mountain Time? I mean, that it would have started in England? I mean, I know they had sundials and stuff before, so that's a level. There might have been a clock before that. I don't have the information right up there, but you got, you got Greenwich Mean Time. And then it spreads globally so that everyone's adhering to time. And it sort of just goes on from there. All the technology. And it is whether, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not organic. It's not nature. It is a map of nature, a form of layer over nature. And it serves a purpose. I don't think it's all that bad, but it also changes, I think, the way our brains are wired. And so children are probably more adapt to not really caring about time as in a clock. They're probably more in tune with sunrise, sunset, right? This organic schedule. And here we are trying to put our babies on this clock for feeding and everything, right? It's really whack when you think about it. When you really think about it and let go of all your concepts and open your mind. Now we're going to get into Donald Trump. Yeah. But before I do, I just want to say that, within these false structures that we've created, like I said, I believe that our psychic powers have reduced. And when we get to the Russian experiments, you'll see that they can increase those psychic abilities when they cut you off from all these electromagnetic frequencies. But we're not there yet. We got a journey to go on. We're in a false construct right now. Kirby in the room. Welcome, Kirby. Thank you. Thank you. I looked frazzled with my hair is wavy naturally and is all over the place and everything was crazy. But once I straighten it, I kind of pull myself together. So the key to looking okay is I have to straighten my hair. It's not super curly, it's just wavy, but it's chaos. If I come on with my I'll look like 20 years older. Swear to God. So let's take a drink break here, guys. We're going to get into talking about Trump. I have talked about Donald Trump before and his experimentation with time. Not him per se, but his connection with it through his uncle. His uncle was schooled at MIT, Professor John Trump. And John Trump was responsible after Nikola Tesla died. Remember, Nikola Tesla was doing all sorts of experiments and he had all these patents locked in like boxes and boxes in his hotel room that he was basically his apartment. And he was struck, I believe he was crossing the road or he was out and a car or something struck him and he died several days later in his apartment. And right away, was it the CIA? Was it the FBI? I'm not sure who went in, but I know John Trump. We'll see it in the video here. We'll go over it. John Trump was responsible for going in and getting all of his research. It was in trunk, like 27 or 30 trunks. And so people came up with this idea that Donald Trump was a time traveler. But maybe he's not. Before we get into the video, I want to do you guys remember on Donald Trump's first term when he went to Saudi Arabia? I'll pop up the picture. And him and those like princes or whatever were standing with that globe. It almost looked like a palantir, like a magical globe. Do you guys remember that? I've got a different I'll leave that up for a second. Um, it was the craziest thing. But the whole like I've got another angle of it here. Here's another angle where they're touching this globe and people freaked out. They were like, what was going on here? Do you guys remember this? Because people went ballistic on the internet. And I don't blame them because it looks weird. It reminds me of Sauron and his magical palantir globe. I think they're telling us stuff all along. So back in the day, it said Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia for his first overseas trip since becoming president. This was in 2016. He made a speech on countering extremism, which they fund the extremism, signed a $110 billion weapon deal. Oh, wow, that's real positive. And got handsy with the king of Saudi Arabia and the president of Egypt. So here on the left, you have the president of Egypt, the king of Saudi Arabia, and Donald Trump. Almost, are they like they're saying something? Are they saying something? Because remember, Trump had the recreation of the Ark of the Covenant in Mar-a-Lago for a long time before it went over to Jerusalem or wherever they put it. But they said it was a photo op, but people are saying it's not a satanic ritual. The Church of Satan said not a satanic ritual. It's an orb, but it's interesting that they chose to do that because it's almost like it kind of ties in with something that we're talking about. And when I remembered back to this, I was like, hey, that was bizarre. That was super strange. Didn't I don't know, did the people say that the Simpsons predicted that, but you got to make sure it's not one of these AI things that people recreate saying, because you get that all the time where they say, look, it's a Simpsons episode, but someone's just created it. I'll check that out. Because people do that all the time now. Let's check it out right now here. Since this is a Q&A, I'm trying to do the best words. Let's see. No, they did not predict the meeting between them and the glowing globe. It was fan-made creation. So the Simpsons, it started off with the Simpsons because a couple of their episodes, people were like, hey, it's happening. But now people just create it and make it up that the Simpsons predicted it. So I don't think there's a Simpsons episodes that talk about it. Although I wonder if there was one that talked about Trump as president. That wouldn't surprise me because I think they've planned this one for a long time. But we are going to go and look at the clip about John Trump and how he was involved in basically taking over Tesla's information and you know, let's get into this. Oh, it's muted. Let's turn that up. Here we go.
Last people to exist. What if that was a lie? Trump specialized in high voltage energy and radiation, just like Tesla wasn't ready for. And here's where it gets even stranger. Or even alternate. Maybe the real.
Okay, so it's very strange. And even if John Trump did find something, I highly doubt he would be able to tell you. It would be classified. The FBI had these files. They wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what they found. I mean, let's be honest. It would be concealed. So I doubt that Trump would express exactly what it was, but there was something. He had access to it. He got to review it. And if he didn't find anything, that doesn't mean somebody did. And I highly doubt they would throw Tesla's research away because this guy was way ahead of his time with free energy. That's weird that it's so static. Well, we won't use TikTok anymore. There might be an internet problem. I apologize, guys. Once again, I will send you the link to that video. I don't know why the volume is going so bad, but it is. So when we get to the other stuff, I've downloaded the videos into my system, so you'll be able to hear that good. But you just seriously have to look up John G. Trump and Tesla on TikTok or anything, and it will show you that he had access. He looked at the records for 3 days. The FBI took over it. He looked at it. He's saying nothing there, nothing to see. But like I said, there's no way that the FBI would let him tell you exactly what was in those. Those would be classified. Those would be sealed. Let's see if we can see where they went. If anyone knows anything, I don't know if you could FOIA it. FBI do with Tesla's files after he died. Let's see if they say anything. So the government, via the Office of Alien Property, with FBI involvement due to national security concerns, seized his papers with John G. Trump, analyzing them, including they were largely speculative, not of military valuable. Most were later then sent to Tesla's family in Yugoslavia for the Nikola Tesla Museum. So you could go to see that, though some missing trunks and classified FBI files remain subjects of intrigue. Interesting. So my guess is they kept what they felt was valuable, and then they sent the rest of it to his family over in Yugoslavia, which is, I think, modern day Croatia. I believe he was from the Croatian area, if I'm to be understanding that properly. Yeah, I don't know why The audio's not working on those clips. I apologize, guys. But we'll get into that. But just remember, there's all these things. There's also the books on Trump being a time traveler. There's those novels on Baron Trump, The Adventures of Baron Trump. Who is that by again? I know you guys know in the audience, but my mind, I have so much in my brain. I'll type it in. It is by Ingersoll Lockwood. There's those books, one where they predict that Trump's the last president, and you often hear them say, oh, Trump should run for a third term. When they said last president, we thought like someone else would take over and it would be authoritarian, but maybe they mean he's the last president. We're going to keep running with him and there's not going to be anyone else after. Because maybe AI takes over. I don't know. But there's all these books, and they're not written during Trump's lifetime. They're written like 1900s, 1893 and 1899. They got Little Baron Trump and his wonderful dog Bulger in 1889, Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey, 1893, Following the Boy's fantastical journey, and The Last President, Ingersoll Lockwood wrote in 1896. It's a novel about a populist president candidate winning an election and causing political upheaval. And Trump Trump played the role of a populist president candidate. Let's just put it that way. He played the role. So is this all, are they just reading this and then trying to act it out? Or is some weird time thing happening? Was there some kind of strange thing with time? I mean, we haven't even gotten to, I don't even have it in my notes to talk about CERN. And maybe that's part of it. And they created a lot of this stuff. Who knows? Maybe they got information from John G's Trump's notes that helped them along with different things in military and CERN. Maybe CERN. I mean, they first fired it up and practiced in 2009, but it was running in 2012 when everybody says that the time shift happened, the Mayan calendar, all this weird stuff started to happen. They said that that's the point where we have everything going into the one timeline. They were running the CERN, the Hadron Collider, and that's when they discovered the God particle. And it's almost like this concept of the more they try to unlock God and the mysteries of the universe, the more things go crazy and they actually come to their own doom. And maybe that's a concept with this, but this idea that they're using these things to discover particles, but do you have to go back in time to the Big Bang? Like they're trying to create that. That's another thing I understand. Like that's like very strange stuff. And we're not going to go into depth into that because we want to get into the Russians' research on something very similar to Project Looking Glass, where it was a type of mirror that I don't even know if they created it, but I mean, there's all these different ways in which you can create almost like a scrying method or a water or some kind of inverted mirror method where you can actually look into time, but obviously involves human beings to do it. It in of its own self is of no consequence. It's why I always say with Ouija boards, it's not the board. It's you. The board is just helping your mind facilitate that you have some kind of power. It has nothing to do with the board. If someone's playing with a Ouija board, in my experience, and they have all these demons, that's them. That's them. This is not the board. Because I've sat there with a board and nothing of consequence happened. And then I had other relatives who had mental health problems do it, and weird things happened. It's not the board. I think people just don't want to accept that something's happening with them. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. Now, I really do want to get into the Russian version of it all and how they constructed it because it's really fascinating.
Remote village above the Arctic Circle. Two Russian scientists
from the Y files. Now, look, this is generally not my favorite channel, but I really like this guy's presentation on Project Looking Glass. I just don't like his talking fish. And you can see in this image, the talking fish has a tinfoil hat on. The talking fish, I just had to get over it and endure the talking fish because the information in the show was really interesting. So we're going to get into what the Russians did with Project Looking Glass, because there's not a lot of information necessarily on what the CIA or Americans or DARPA or any of those groups did. A lot of it is probably still classified, but a lot of the researchers in Russia, their stuff is openly available. In fact, I'll give you a link towards the end of the show. We'll go over the document of a book where they discussed what was going on, and you can check it out. But the CIA is kind of release some of their documents, but they're not going to show everything. And apparently, according to the CIA, the Russians had better results with this type of experiment on looking glasses, on seeing into the future with human consciousness, with psychic spies. They had more success. The CIA will say it's because they're lying or they're quacks, but I don't think so. I disagree. I think that that's a dismissive avenue that I'm not willing to take right now. So let's have a look at this video, and he's going to talk about, it's one of 5 that I have to go through. We're going to look at what Russia was doing.
Village above the Arctic Circle, 2 Russian scientists embarked on a daring experiment. Their goal was to enhance human superperception, or ESP. They built a device that could shield subjects from electromagnetic interference and amplify their biological energy. The device was a large tube of rolled aluminum with a chair inside. As soon as the device was built, strange phenomena occurred around the village. Disc-shaped lights hovered around the lab. Balls of energy appeared and disappeared. The northern lights became so bright and vivid that they seemed to have physical shape. Inside the lab, anyone who approached the device felt an unexplainable sense of dread. It took a long time to persuade anyone to try it. When the first subject finally sat in the chair, a flash of energy erupted that stunned everyone in the lab. The device worked, but maybe it worked a little too well. Not only did it boost people's psychic abilities, it also enabled them to view any place in the world. And soon, they could view any place in time. In fact, these experiments confirmed a theory first proposed in the 1950s, that time as we know it
doesn't exist. Renee's like, why do you dislike hecklefish? I have the plushie. He just drives me nuts. I'm the type of person, I'm like, I want the information. I don't want to hear the fish. So that's my issue. He's kind of cute. He's kind of funny, but I'm like locked, loaded, double Aries. I want the information. I want the fish to be quiet. It's distractive to me. And I think that's the issue with it. That's the issue with the hecklefish. I don't want to be distracted by him. So we'll go into part 2 where we continue on. We're going to start talking about torsion. And I want, if my husband's listening, listen to torsion, because it kind of reminded me of something I mentioned to you before. We're gonna talk about torsion. Oh, wait a minute.
Remote village above the Arctic Circle.
Whoops. That's not it. I was in the wrong place. I want to do my video footage. I think, are we getting into torsion? Yeah. I think we're getting into torsion right now.
Stars emit torsion fields, an idea that was controversial. Now, torsion is a cornerstone of Kozyrev's work, and if his theories are proven correct, he might have solved, well, everything. Torsion, in simple terms, is the twisting of an object due to an applied torque, like wringing out a wet cloth. That's torsion in action. In theoretical physics, torsion is the twisting of space-time itself. You've heard of Einstein's theory of relativity, which describes gravity as not a force, but as the warping or curving of space and time by mass and energy. Now, this is always shown with the rubber sheet example. Imagine a rubber sheet stretched out, that if you put a bowling ball on it, representing a massive object like a planet or a star, it'll create a dip or curve in the sheet. Then if you drop marbles onto the sheet, representing smaller masses, they roll toward the bowling ball. That's general relativity. Now, the Einstein-Cartan theory upgrades this theory with a new feature, torsion, where the rubber sheet or space-time can be completely twisted. And to understand torsion, imagine you're holding one end of a slinky.
What walks downstairs alone or in pairs and makes a slinkety sound? A spring, a marvelous thing. Everyone knows a slinky.
Great, now that's going to be a
Yeah, see, that's why I'm like, I don't want that fish in my head all day. Thanks a lot, bro.
It's fun for a girl or a boy.
That's the unisex slinky toy.
If you pull the ends of a slinky or a spring, it doesn't just bend, it also twists. In a similar way, the Einstein-Cartan theory proposes that the fabric of space-time doesn't just curve due to mass and energy, it can also twist. This twisting, according to Einstein, comes from the spinning of subatomic particles. But Kozyrev said that torsion is not caused by particles, it's caused by time.
So Einstein saying torsion is caused by particles in the atoms. This Russian fellow who's doing these experiments with people and putting them in that enclosure with the aluminum tubes and stuff like that, he says the twisting's caused by time. Whatever that is. So we have to get to part 3. It's really interesting because it's the twisting that I think they're going to get into that is crucial to see. It's not, you don't travel in time with these experiments. They see in time. They see back right in the room. They're still there. And they see in time. And I think it has something to do with our mind, that our mind is actually the time traveling device, because I have heard of experiments where they stimulated the brain and they did brain experiments and people were in their childhood room again. Like they weren't just thinking about it and remembering it. They were there. Very strange experiments, but it's better for me to show it in these videos because they explain it so much better than I could. Like that's why I was like, this guy's doing a good job. I will have to endure the fish. It's a very cute goldfish, but I couldn't be like, yeah, I would be, all right, skip to it. Come on, let's get to the goods. So let's go to the third one where they talk about time again.
Time, like the river, is always there. Past, present, and future all at once. When the torsion from time energy ripples through the ether, that information is transmitted instantaneously everywhere. The past, the present, and the future. And Kozyrev proved it. He conducted experiments with pendulums and gyroscopes to detect torsion fields and time energy. Using a telescope, Kozyrev found a star. The light from the star is really from the past, right? The light from a star 10,000 light years away takes 10,000 years to get here. Fine. Kozyrev detected torsion from that star 10,000 light years away. So that torsion was also from the past. Next, Kozyrev calculated where the star was at the current time. He detected torsion there too. In fact, the reading was much higher than the previous test. This means not only is torsion real, it moves much faster than light. It's instantaneous. Kozyrev went a step further. He calculated where the star would be in the distant future. He detected torsion there too. Kozyrev concluded that all time is simultaneous and infinite, that past and future are just...
Oh, is it stopped? Yeah. So that we'll do part 4 and 5 in a minute. We'll come back to that. But it's that interesting idea that twisting and torsion, like that twisting of time and the way that it operates, because there is no time. I was just watching The Matrix the other day, and the scene, the little girl goes, you bend the spoon, because she's bending the spoon, and she basically tells Neo, what you have to realize is there is no spoon. There is no time, right? So this idea is you're not physically traveling anywhere like Marty McFly in Back to the Future, which is an awesome, fun movie that I love to watch, by the way, but that it's all now. So when you twist it, one thing that happens over there can happen within you simultaneously. So something, because the past and the present and the future are all at once, if it's happened there, you can tap into it simultaneously because it's all kind of connected, if I understand it right. See, this gets into quantum stuff. That's why I had to have these videos to explain it, because my mind's like, yeah, that's what's happening. And I wonder, look, you get these, the Starlink, all of that stuff that we're seeing Elon Musk doing. Elon Musk's not responsible for that. It's all military. It's all military, DARPA, all those agencies. They're the ones responsible for that. It's their stuff. Same with the internet. They're all responsible for having that construct made. And maybe this is their way to challenge what they think they saw with time. Now, I'm not going to go play the Matrix stuff, but if you go back, I might rewatch the movie actually at some point in the future. Maybe Mike wants to watch it at some time. But they show you what it's about AI basically taking over, and how the humans came at AI and tried to destroy everything with the sun, and it kind of worked against them, because all the AI did was basically harness the humans as batteries, and they had these pods. The word matrix itself means womb. It's the womb. So they created their own matrix. They're doing it right now. They're creating their own wombs. This is the portal, right? The womb is the portal in which life comes through the woman, and they're creating their own matrix. So you had all these humans in these really grotesque, disgusting, like basically battery packs. They're battery packs. And so they present to them this false reality to lull them to, so they're busy, and they're, from birth to death, they're basically battery packs, and they're just basically watching a fake world. And then Neo is the one, he wakes up, and it's a good reference for now, but maybe we're not even there right now, because they're creating pods as we speak to birth children. And everywhere else, if you want to do it organically, and everybody isn't producing, or their fertility rates down, you're going to have intro veto IVF, and you're going to have, I almost said IDF. Oh God, I get my acronyms messed up. But you're going to have in vitro fertilization, and they're going to be like, you need permission or you need insurance. It's a lot of money. So only the very wealthy will be able to get it. And that'll eliminate poor. Like, they're always attacking the poor. They're attacking the womb, the sacred organic womb. Time attacks natural rotation of the planet. Everything's always attacking the nature, trying to unlock it and control it, because it's so fragile. You can't take it. And it's not about men. It's not men being fragile. We got Renee saying, I recently saw a video of a student teacher being arrested at the school. Which school was that? And we're getting crazy. People are getting crazier because people are waking up. Go look in the Matrix. When anyone doesn't act on the program, like an NPC, like everybody who's tied into it, they're tied into it. They don't see the truth. They'll attack you, right? If you try to tell them. But so anybody who's seeing it and who's a threat, Agent Smith, they're like these programs, right? They're coming out, and people are afraid of them. They're afraid of them. And it's not until Neo actually, his old self, he actually dies. They shoot him. His old self dies, but he understands that it's not real. The spoon doesn't exist. None of this exists. And he has to really internalize that. That means the old world, your fake self, has to metaphorically die. Not literally. Metaphorically, unalive. It's so, I'm sorry. I just have to interject. It's so insane how we have to edit ourselves and say people are going PDF files and unalive, and they're doing these code names for Charlie Kirk. It's so nuts. Renee says, I just saw a video that showed a student teacher being arrested. She Snapchat her boyfriend and her two roommates making a joke about Pew, a student. Oh, yeah, things are getting crazy. You have to be so careful with what you say and what you do and who you put in. You almost have to be fake. It's just, we're in this inauthentic world, and the people who get rewarded and the people who are getting all the views are like these crazy, influencers that are so shallow and so gross. They get all the benefits, but it's a false. We're in a false world. And like I said, I've interviewed enough people and talked to enough people with NDEs, either good or bad, who realize that this is, we're supposed to be here for love. And love comes up in the Matrix too. Love saves the day. It comes up in the Matrix. It's this idea that you're supposed to spread love, which is why there's so much fear and hostility and division right now, because they're like, oh no, you won't be putting love on in this realm. We need to control you, and love will make you fearless. Yeah, Illinois police were notified by FBI. So bizarre. I wonder what's really going on with that. And Chicago is a key area too. That's where Charlie Kirk was from. That's where he was educated, in these special schools. What was it called? I can't remember the name of his high school. There's lots of people out there talking about this. Candace talked about it. Wow, within an hour. Yeah, they're like Agent Smiths. It's like, hey, we got someone acting up over here. They're seen outside the Matrix. Go get them. Sorry, I just had to have a cough thing. I'm going to have some water here. It's a good time to watch that video. Part 3, we'll get back into the time thing. But it's weird because I was talking to my husband about time, and a lot of this stuff that's going on is the system afraid that people aren't going to need it or don't want it. It always has to do these crazy things to keep you in the system. That much is true. That much is definitely true. I'm going to crack open. I've got another water here. I've got my sparkling water. It's like my treat because I'm trying not to have soda or Coke Zeros. Oh, and Coke. Coca-Cola, as in the pop. I'm a drug addict, you guys. It's come out, like, people are showing how they're in with the WEF and they're in with politics. No surprise. It's all together in that system. Remember, I went over that a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the swarm and all these corporations, all these banks, all these political people. There's not one that's not. They are all in this system. That's the Matrix, the swarm. Look up Dr. Shiva, the swarm. Just a reminder to you. That is the Matrix. They're always keeping you tied into that. And most of us, myself included, are tied into that. And I think the reason the CIA and the FBI, DARPA, or whoever does it in our country, they aren't going to tell us because they don't want us accessing this information, because it gives us abilities outside of the matrixy system that we have here, right? And they don't want that. So let's go back.
We're
going to look at part 4. Here we go.
And Soviet intelligence is not so secret anymore. The most famous American program was Project Stargate. This program explored various psychic abilities, but specifically concentrated on remote viewing, which is trying to visualize a distant target using only the mind. Now, the results of Project Stargate were mixed, but there were a few reported successes. The Soviet Union also engaged in psychic espionage, and they invested heavily in parapsychology and psychic phenomena. And the Soviets, according to declassified CIA documents, seem to have been more successful in their attempts. The project we talked about earlier, led by Dr. Travimov and Dr. Kaznachev, was one of these successes. The program began in December 1990 at the Institute of Experimental Medicine of the Academy of Sciences Siberian branch. The equipment was assembled at a facility in Dixon, the northernmost settlement in Asia. The main piece of equipment is called a Kozyrev mirror, based on Kozyrev's research and patents. The mirror is a spiral-shaped metal structure the size of a small closet.
So this is the first one we mentioned that the Soviets constructed is a lot more complex. This is the one that you yourself could probably test with. So pay attention to this mirror experiment that they did.
To capture and focus psychic energy in the middle of the spiral. There, the occupant, called a psychonaut, embarks on their psychic journey. At least, that was the plan. As soon as the Kozyrev mirror was built, strange events started occurring in the facility and all over the town. And everything is documented in the book Cosmic Consciousness of Humanity by Drs. Kaznachev and Travimov. The book includes interviews with test subjects, transcripts of recordings, and illustrations of everything that happened during the study. It's really interesting and
Okay, so I actually have the link for that book. We're going to go and have a look. Oops. Just flip through it quickly. I mean, it's 222 pages. I've got it here online. I will pop that. The link is in the description to the show already for you, but I'm going to pop it into the chat for people who want to go look at this book that they published, because it talks about this mirror kind of technology and what they did with it and how they could kind of see certain things. There are people who literally did experiments with this and were able, and say the same, if you go watch this whole video on his channel, you will see that they actually they were still there in the room, and same with these chambers that they made earlier, but they were able to travel back and see in these mirrors, in the wall, almost it would appear, their own childhood, like they were watching themselves 50 years before or whatever. They didn't physically travel back in time. They did it in the mind. And this is all the more reason why they want to do so much mind control and MK Ultra control to get you to do stuff. But they want you to have a limited expansion on where you go, what you do, how you see yourself. They want you to have an identity. You're a soldier. You're a woman. I mean, we know you're woman and man. I'm not saying you can be something else in this physical reality and you should go do surgeries, but they don't just want you to identify this. They want you to identify something and then see the other as a threat. So you go after it. And this is part of the mind control. So you never actually go and experience stuff like this and look at stuff like this. So there's the book. Let's go and look at, we'll do screen share here, the actual book that I just gave you the link for. It's called Cosmic Consciousness of Humanity, Problems of New Cosmogony by V.P. Kazanechev and A.V. Trofimov. So I said that right. And you get a whole bunch of other books too. They'll say you might also like the Book of Wisdom, The Secret Relation of they've got also a document here for Blue Beam Project, the Borax Cubes, the Hermetic Principles, Suppressed Books Catalog. Like they have a whole bunch of stuff on this website. Top Secret Medicine. Check it out. Let's see if they have, here's the table of full screen. Let's do full screen here. I'm just going to go through the, oh shoot. They want me to subscribe with a free trial. Well, good Lord. I guess we're signing up for a free trial right now. Let's see if we can continue with Facebook. Uh-oh. Let's see if we can get this. No. Okay. I gave you the link. You might have to sign up for 3 days, but you get the idea. Let's see if I can just go back and not do full screen. I think it's something to do with full screen that they're trying to make me do that. Let's stay non-full screen. But yeah, they're saying ideas of Russian cosmism, living matter, a view from space, news cosmology, the spatial temporal world of living matter. Very much really unique title. So yeah, they're tapping me out. 212 pages, 94% thumbs up. Cosmic Consciousness of Humanity, Problems of News Cosmology. Sign up for a free trial and have a look at that book. There's a whole bunch of other books that they kind of give you. They're not going to let me have access to it now. Let's go back. Renee said it was in Washington, Illinois, but Snapchat, I guess, has things flagged and notified the FBI. The poor girl had never been in trouble and was crying after she would have to stay overnight. It's so insane that they take everything out of context and crazy. It's why we should look. It's their system. Let's be honest. They've created this system. We're locked into it. They're going to bully us around and do what they want. So yeah, people say you have to kind of follow their rules, but who knows? They could change the rules. They change them without telling you. Next thing you know, collecting rainwater. If you show that on video, they've got the FBI arresting you, like for crazy stuff. They want to control everything you do. That's why we got Palantir coming in. And that's why this picture here of Donald Trump I thought was really disturbing, because it's very Palantir-y. And the company Palantir, because we have these weirdo tech freaks who are mentally ill, and they love their fantasy, and fantasy's fine. I like Lord of the Rings too, but I don't actually try to go, I want to be like Sauron. I want to be able to spy on everyone, so I have the advantage, and let's go at them. But this is the game of war, and everything's constructed on limit, not having enough, war, taking other people's land, taking other people's stuff, controlling everybody's mind. It's not about love. It's not about goodness. And normal people, that's what they want. They want community. They want love. They want cohesion. They want to get along. They want to raise their children. They want to eat healthy food. These people don't really care about that for you. They're parasitical and they want to control everything. And we are in their system. But the irony is their system relies on the organic system. And the faster that degrades, their system is built on top of it. Their system won't last. So God really is at the core. Whatever creative force is here beyond this realm is in control, because their system is built on top of it. And I think they're deluding themselves on how much power they have. I think the joke's on them eventually. And like I said, the more they push, the more God. I mean, we're this little dot in an entire universe. Do you think it's like really that scared of them? I mean, really? We're going to watch the last video. I'm going to take a look here. The fifth and final. Let's check it out.
By mainstream science that were later proven to be true. What if he's right about this too? But using a mirror to reflect time, that sounds very science fiction-y. And it was, until last month. Scientists at the Advanced Science Research Center at the City University of New York conducted an experiment. They sent an electromagnetic wave through a metamaterial. These waves also have a time component that can be measured. The wave went in moving forward and came out moving backward. This is what's called a time reflection, and this was pure theory until now. So Nikolai Kozyrev was right. Time isn't as linear as we thought. Kozyrev also said time affects everything in the universe physically. Well, Dr. Travamov has been using Kozyrev's theories and Kozyrev mirrors to predict earthquakes. Again, sounds like science fiction, but geologists' accuracy in earthquake prediction is on average 8%. In 2018, Travamov's accuracy was as high as 61%. According to Travamov, we can use Kozyrev mirrors to predict dangerous weather, volcanic eruptions, and even solar storms. Kozyrev mirrors could be used to study our solar system, or even deep space. We can use it to look for landing sites, or help us search for extraterrestrial civilizations. Kozyrev mirrors could be used to slow down the rate of aging in the human body and cure incurable diseases.
I mean, can you understand why they don't want you to have access to this if it is real? Do you understand if you could do this and knew how to do this yourself? What advantage it actually gives you? And why they don't want you to have this advantage? Because if you're out of their system, the more people that leave their system, it crumbles, right? The more people that go to organic. Now, there's dangers in going with the global, the world. There's trauma there. And maybe that's why we developed some of these systems in the first place, and we want a more reliable system. But it's getting to the point where it's extremely rigid. And it's trying to destroy the organic. And I think they're kidding themselves. I don't think they get to exist if they destroy the organic. I could be wrong. Maybe they are like the Matrix and they have some other plan, like using us for sludge. But no doubt they use us for energy. And I think that's why, look, there's some truth in the Matrix, but I don't think they tell you everything. I think they kind of, they do it in a way that suggests something, but it doesn't really help you step by step, like logically go, how can I see things? How can I not let the world affect me? How can I be better? It's hard because these movies are so, in metaphors, or they don't speak directly to our language. because we're so literal now and we want to know, well, how do we do this? But that book that I put in the chat, that I also have linked in the description of this podcast, talks about this and talks about these mirrors that they worked with. And that part is actually very approachable by day-to-day humans. So you didn't hear me say it. If the FBI shows up with a SWAT team while I'm doing this, I doubt they will, but you never know. I'm kidding. So it's doable. And I think there's a whole bunch of other elements, natural elements, like tapping, massage therapy, energy tapping, psyche. There's different ways that you can work on yourself that will tap you into your higher consciousness, your higher self, to information that no one else has. Well, certainly anyone who's shallow, like Trump, they don't have access to that because they can't. You can't be a shallow, money hungry, hoarding, nasty, cruel psychopath and talk to your higher self at the same time. There is a chance that most of the people on this planet, or at least on the internet, it's like in the Matrix where they're not real, or they're locked into it and programmed. So if you say, hey, that didn't happen, the rest of the people attack you because the program, the system tells them that you're bad, you're a heretic, you're wrong, you're trying to hurt them. They present you as a demon. And this has always been part of propaganda. So elites, powerful people control everything. They control religion. That's why the Matrix is so Gnostic-y. That's why they got rid of the Gnostics back in the day. They didn't want you telling you that you had access to this type of information. You'll still see Christians and evangelical now tell you that this stuff is of the devil. I've even heard her say it, like Candace Owens, like, oh, devil worshiping. Get that? This is where I disagree with a lot of them. This isn't devil worshiping. If you're, in my opinion, possession and devil worshiping is trauma trapped in your body and distorted. If you are experiencing that and you think there's demons all around and you have pain in you, sure, there's going to be negative stuff that is attracted to that pain, and you attract more and you create more for trauma. You got drugs, all that stuff. But exploring this stuff and looking at consciousness and meditation, and I think is not bad. I think it feels bad. Like they said, when they first experimented with this, people felt weird. They didn't want to go near the room because it had a physiological effect. But once you push past the physiological effect, I think within an hour, you start feeling totally different and you start being able to see things, predict things, see into the past, see into the future, because the real construct of time is that it's all happening now. So you can tap into something from back there because it's still now, it's still here. And that's a hard one to wrap our heads around. It's it's a super hard one to wrap our heads around. And furthermore, I wonder if the healing process in this is if we can't change the past or what we did, but maybe we can go back, see it as an observer, and get information and realize something that we incorporate into ourselves now that help us change things and change the timeline for the future. We don't go and try to manipulate others. We just have an aha and a realization like, oh, I was locked in my head at that time. I saw it this way, but when I viewed it outside as a third person, now I see there was all these other things happening and it's not that way. That helps me now make things better so I don't continue on that trajectory. And I think that's a part that a lot of these psychopaths are missing. They see that just like Anakin Skywalker saw the dream and they're like, I have to stop it. Not, I have to learn and change myself and change aggressive things. I have to see things from multiple different perspectives. And maybe I just have to change my behavior. Hey, system, maybe if you weren't such assholes, people wouldn't be rising up. Maybe if you chilled the fuck out, you wouldn't have to be so controlling. What was that my husband said? That you can only give so much authority and control and policing as people will accept. And so they've spent a whole lot of time brainwashing us to accept a whole lot of control and making us lazy and helpless. But I think this stuff, if you really look into it, I can't tell you what's going to happen for you, but it might be at least interesting to consider that maybe you can see different things in certain ways if you change and shift your mind, or you're in some kind of environment that blocks out all the false frequencies that are on this planet. Radio waves, microwaves, telephone lines. Well, now it's wireless telephone lines. Electricity lines. Who knows what else is going on? If you can block that out, maybe your mind can actually travel and actually experience time as it is, which is all at once. I got some more stuff to look at because that actually talk about Project Looking Glass as opposed to the Russians one. But I find the Russian experiments really interesting, and I think they're worth looking at. But
by mainstream science that were
And I do encourage you guys to go check out that whole video because it's interesting. And I had to endure that fish for you guys. So go look at it and give a thumbs up to this show, okay? Because I had to listen to the fish. That drives me crazy, but I did it. I overcame my own issues and I listened to the fish. I did it for you. Let's go see. I've got some more videos. Not that one. Let's go. Yeah. To this one on Project Looking Glass. It's 7 minutes long. We'll do that one. Let's check it out. It is Project Looking Glass. This is a short version of the whole show. The whole show, I think, is a paid one, but we can check it out and let's see what they have to say. Let me know if there's a sound problem because it isn't. In my system, it's a video.
proven to be true. What if
Okay.
he's right about this too? But using a mirror to
Not
reflect
loading.
time, that's
It's not loading. Let's go again. Come on, guys. Let's do it. It's not loading. Okay, so it's being a pain in the butt. So we're going to go to this scene and I'll have to reset it up from scratch. Let's set that one up from scratch. Let's do a screen share. Here we go. Now I'm going to set it. It's so strange. It is not doing a screen share. All right, let's stop the screen share. Let's add a scene. It's being very difficult. Here we go. We got it. It's going to do it now. There we go. Technology. Let's just play it. I won't get too specific with this one, but let's just play it and check it out here.
Very few people that are listening have heard about. Maybe some have. It's become more common, that's for sure. When I first heard about the Looking Glass, we were working on the film Packing for Mars. And we had people working in the film or that were being interviewed, protagonists like Laura Eisenhower. And she would often, when we did our conversations and our interviews for the film, she would talk about, Project Monarch and then Project Looking Glass. And I kept hearing Looking Glass and Looking Glass. And then we interviewed Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy. And as you know, those are two people that had founded probably the first pair of.
So Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy were one of the reasons I started looking at stuff like this way back when YouTube was brand new. They're one of the earliest people who did this. I would actually recommend, they've kind of been, taken over by this system, which is why I'm a little bit suspicious of Candace still. I would recommend Carrie Cassidy is still out there. She's doing stuff. She has a website. She's doing content. I would recommend looking at her interview. I will see if I can find the interview. She interviewed a whistleblower on Project Looking Glass, I would recommend typing in Carrie Cassidy Project Looking Glass on YouTube, and you might still find that. But I don't know if she's on YouTube. You might be able to find her, but they're one of the originals who were doing it, and they would, interview people like David Icke, stuff like that. Let's continue.
People to ever really kind of found a podcast or a webcast, I don't know, back then there was probably no name for it like that. But in the early 2000s, they began to interview whistleblowers that were working on black ops projects, and they had they had heard about the Looking Glass, and they did an interview with somebody who was directly involved. Now, the Looking Glass itself is kind of the way it's described. It's like it's like a glass, but it's not really glass. In this case, instead of being like a crystal ball, which is probably the cliched way of looking at it, it's a plasma ball. And in that plasma ball are images that you can see. And this is interesting because when I heard about the Looking Glass, it was after I'd heard about something, and we interviewed one of the people for Packing for Mars who worked on a project called the Chronovisor. And, I even have a picture, I don't know, like a loose, I don't know if you could call it picture, but it's sort of a depiction of this guy called Pellegrino Ernetti. He was a pastor working in the Vatican. He was also a physicist. And his passion was to try and figure out a way to capture audio signals, which had been, his theory was that if because audio is resonance, it's frequency and vibration, and it feeds the magnetic field of the planet. We know that our entire planet is surrounded by a magnetic field, and so he figured out there must be a way you can capture sort of the old remnant resonances of these audio files that are still kind of stored in the magnetosphere, like a giant you could say hard drive around the planet.
So it reminds me of Akashic record kind of stuff, or like this ether, like a lot of the Russians talked about ether and a collective consciousness, all this stuff. This reminds me of that a lot, where there's something storing stuff. And as you can see, the tech bros and their systems are trying to emulate this very thing.
Planet. And he was so successful at doing it that it was not just actual sound that he captured, but he actually captured pictures. Gritty looking pictures, and but they were able to, like, with the device that he created, project sort of a really gritty looking, grainy looking, almost 3D holographic, like black and white image of events that had taken place in the past, as crazy as this sounds. And this was in the 1950s, okay? So that device was shown to the Vatican and to some high brass and so Italian high brass, but very quickly vanished because the people that saw it, they were doing tests with it, and they could go back in time and they could listen to, or they, of course, the Vatican wanted to know the crucifixion, right? Is it real? Did it happen? Can we prove it? Can we show it? And before all that got out, it went under. And like
I say, I think if they had access to that, you see their questions, like, is the crucifixion real? Is da-da-da-da-da? I think if they went back for the information, they would find that everything's bullshit that we believe, and they don't want people to know that. They're like, let's cap this. Let's continue with propaganda and our hokey ass narratives, because I believe that the consciousness, the collective, it absorbs everything as what everyone did or said. And so we can lie to ourselves. We all do it. We all gaslight ourselves or whatever, but it records everything as is. So if you're going to go back there, you're going to see stuff you don't like. So you're like, oh, let's not tell people about this, because they'll go back, and let's make them think they're crazy. Let's make them think this is quackery. So they don't actually go back and go, hey, that didn't happen like that. And it's hard. Like, how do you prove that? How do you prove this exists? Because it's untangible. No one can touch it. But they certainly don't want you experimenting with this. That's for sure. Let's continue.
Only to surface about 20 years later in another project that the man that we interviewed for Packing for Mars, Andrew Bushago, was involved in, called Project Pegasus, which he said was a combination of something that Nikola Tesla had been creating and the chronovisor. The only picture I could maybe show you guys is this one, which is the Tesla magical disc, they called it. And apparently Tesla, he's kind of they thought of him as this crazy
Okay, I haven't seen this part yet, so it's going to be interesting to see if this disc rotates. Is there something to it? Wondrous machine by which he has penetrated nature's secret and compels her to do his bidding. Wow. There's this theme with creating this machine that gives you a one-up power. But sometimes, as strange as the universe is, it may work against you.
Christian he's pretty much been erased out of the history books because everyone remembers, Marconi and Thomas Edison. They've heard of Tesla.
Magnifying transmitter. Remember, apparently Tesla was born during a thunder and lightning storm. Interesting stuff. Maybe that is why he has such a special way of thinking. He was a little strange. He was in love with a pigeon or something, and he didn't have any real relationships. His work was that was it. If I think I'm a loner, that's nothing. Tesla was a loner who was in love with his pigeon, but hey, I think this is important information. 100%.
Coils, and now of course Elon Musk stole the name for Tesla cars. But essentially, what happened is you have Tesla being this amazing scientist who figured out a whole different form of physics, not going on like Einstein's theory of relativity, which is completely flawed, and he plagiarized it anyway. It wasn't even his. But Tesla took this totally different.
Okay, did you hear that? He literally said Einstein plagiarized the theory of relativity, which wouldn't surprise me because this system steals everything. So I find that interesting. I don't know what proof he has. We'll say alleged, but interesting stuff.
Different concept of the universe. And he figured out, ways to generate electricity wirelessly. All our cell phones, wireless mobile technology, it all comes out of Tesla's work. And of course, because as soon as he figured out how to do
that's why I don't trust the military when they say they didn't find anything, because a lot of this stuff, text messages, the military had this long time ago. They've had this technology and they've been developing it for a long time, and I think they found it from Tesla, amongst other things. And time travel, they're never going to give us that one. They're never going to give us the chance to go back and look at things. That's not going to happen. Not willingly, not without nuking us all.
Electricity wirelessly. His financier, JP Morgan, figured out, hey, we're not going to make any money on this, so let's pull the plug. And his amazing Wardenclyffe Tower, which he had created, where he was gonna create the first live demonstration of wirelessly transmitted electricity across the ocean, was knocked out. And that was the end, and we never really heard of Tesla again, although he was involved on working on the technology behind the Philadelphia experiment. Now, that's something maybe some of your viewers have also heard about. All these things, there's been...
Okay, so I heard that the Philadelphia experience was a hoax. So you guys can fill me in if you know more. I know my husband knows more. I don't know if it was or it happened, but that would be an interesting thing. That's like beam me up Scotty technology kind of thing, like trying to transport you and you get merged with other. That's why I like the Russian version. You don't have to physically go anywhere. It's mind travel through time, because time's all now. It's all there stored in your mind. Mind travel. I like it.
Films about, and there's been whispers about on the internet. Okay, so fast forward, so we have this technology that somehow allows people to peer into other times. remnant times, and maybe not even the future, maybe also the past, and other versions of the present and different timelines. It works into the idea that we don't just live in one dimension or in one timeline. And in quantum physics now, they're coming up with new models and new understandings of the universe that make it clear that we are essentially working in like parallel timelines, and as soon as we make one decision to maybe go right instead of left, or go to the store or not go to the store, we've altered our timeline and created a version of the timeline which is customized to our own new preference. But the way eternity in the universe is supposed to work according to quantum physics is that there also was a version of you that made the other decision, and he went to the store, or he went to the movie, or didn't, or whatever, So these versions of the timeline are virtually invisible, but they're still running parallel to you in another dimension. And so the looking glass technology apparently is based on technology that actually is able to view these timelines.
Please click.
So it's not just viewing past and present, it's viewing timelines that you didn't choose, where something went off another direction. That's where things get a little convoluted. I don't know that the Russians, I don't know if they experimented with that. I don't have that information. It's probably out there. It's just, I had a lot to go through in a short period of time. But this idea that you can actually look at different timelines. And the idea is that all these timelines kind of merge into one, and there's only one decision you'll make with whatever your consciousness is. And that they've seen different timelines when they've done this experimentation, and they're trying to merge it into their timeline. Everybody. That's why they want to control your mind. They control your thoughts. You're making limited decisions that only go in so many ways. You can't have all these different choices. That's how I'm understanding it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put your own philosophies in the comments if you're coming post podcast. But there's this really, it gets really convoluted and very mysterious. But yeah, you can experiment with this. Like I said, using the mirror technique. And there's something to aluminum protecting you, Faraday cages, all this stuff. Remember, they can get you with sound. There's just so many ways that they can fry your brain, like your receptor that does this stuff in this plane to control you, to get back at you, revenge. Like they're really bitter suckers. Like they're so bitter. I got one more video. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing, because we are going to tie it up pretty quick here. This guy is saying, recreating Project Looking Glass, viewing my future. It's a 10-minute video. Let's skip. I'm going to skip ahead here. Let me see if you've got it. Yeah, you guys can see it. Can we? Okay, so we're going to start at finding components. And let's see what he has to say about this.
I'm going to need some electronic components, so I'm going to go to some thrift stores to see if I can locate some stuff that I'm missing. I collect electronic equipment, so I already have quite a bit of stuff in my garage already. Community thrift store in Charlotte has a lot of electronic and miscellaneous stuff. Let's check it out.
Sorry, I wish you didn't have that background music. It's really just, I'm going to get a copyright, I know it. Let's go to building the machine. Let's watch him build what he's
I'm going to need to modify this frame to fit what I need in here. So I'm going to coat this frame with copper paint. I will use this digital picture frame for the digital clock and calendar on it. I will hook it up to the rest of the electronic components. Here's my old laptop. I'm going to take it apart because I need the motherboard and some other components for this time machine.
Okay. You guys see why I'm telling you to do the mirror version and your own mind? Your own mind is your motherboard. It's all your stuff. He's building this stuff out of the physical stuff because this is what's been presented in our realm. I'm not going to be building this stuff. I'm not an engineer of sorts. It's fascinating they can do this, but it's why I'm like, hey, your mind can do this. The mirror stuff. This kind of pulls you away from the organic, but it's fascinating how he's doing it. We'll just go over it a little bit more. Maybe we can look at the finished product and tie the show up. But he's building an actual physical machine to do this, where I think you could be a little bit more organic and do mind travel and do remote viewing, all sorts of stuff, if you know how to block out certain frequencies that are interfering with that. So let's see what else he's got to do.
So I'm going to take apart this DVD player and take out the components for the machine. This coffee machine is perfect for the argon gas tank.
This is really interesting. I don't even know if this works, but he's using all these, he's summed up, he's like getting argon take, he's summing up all the things you need, and he's taking it from devices that are around, thrift stores, DVD players, old laptops, coffee machines. I can't, I have no idea if this would even work. Is this just a hobby? Is he trying to create like a fake one? I'm not sure. I haven't gone through this whole thing yet. Like I said, look at the Russians. Look at the Russians.
It has components that I need for this machine also.
Okay, I'm going to put this ahead because I don't want him to build it. You guys can go check it out. Let's get to powering it up at 6 minutes. Let's see him power it up.
I believe it should work. I'm going to power this thing up and see what happens. Perfect. Everything is fully operational.
Like the Death Star, fully operational. Okay, I would have a seizure right now. You see his flashing strobe lights? I would have a seizure and a migraine from this. I'm going with the mirror. I'm telling you guys, this stuff is like making me feel sick just watching it. If I get a migraine because of this, bro, we're done here. I'm looking away. I can't directly look at flashing light. I like the beat. It's like mysterious. Will it work? Is he going to disappear into another dimension? It's pretty impressive that he kind of took this project. Don't know what happens.
Rip.
Okay, is he gonna Marty McFly? I don't know what's gonna happen. What the hell is that? Is that like a barbecue gas thing? Oh my god,
I'm
he's
going
gonna
to
blow
activate
up.
some commands. I'll put the headset on now.
A headset? Holy shit.
Now I'll set the date that I want to view. I will look into the year 2044.
This is like a DeLorean, but it's
That's
not a
24
DeLorean.
years from now, which we are currently at July 11th, 2020. I'm going to meditate and focus on my thoughts.
2044.
All right, let's see what happens.
Tense here, man.
Shit, it actually works.
How do we know that's not a DVD, bro? Yeah, I don't buy it. It's like a website. He was traveling in time in a website. He's full of it. This is funny. Alright. This is next level trolling. He trolled. I was like, yeah, no, this ain't gonna work. That's funny. So he's trolling people about the Project Looking Glass. But here's the thing. It's really funny. I actually find that hilarious. the experiments they did had nothing to do with computer and argon and coffee machines like I just showed you. It had to do with the human mind. It had to do with consciousness. It had to do with thinking and your brain power and all that stuff. I loved that he did that though. That was so funny. I was like, what the hell's going on here? I wanted to that's why I was like, I don't think this is the good shit. It's super funny, but like I said, I don't see how you're going anywhere with a coffee machine and a laptop and a I think that's great. It's so funny. I told you it's mind travel. It's not time travel. It's mind travel, and it's accessing a ether, an archive of information. You know, David Icke talks about this, where our mind is the filter, and it's like spirituality coming through into this planet, and it's why the mind is so important into this kind of traveling and mind control. You can bet that these elements where they're using mirrors, where they're basically shutting you off from all this stuff. It's why I was like looking at that going, well, that could never work, because he's literally in all these frequencies that would shut your mind off from being able to do this. And like I told you before, they've done experiments where they've tapped certain things in the brain, tested certain elements in the brain, touching different places in the brain, and people's literally there. So he's funny, but I think he like most people who are smart asses and think they know everything and are locked in this dimension, he doesn't really understand that it's not time travel, it's mind travel. And it's accessing different elements of time with torsion, that whole idea that you can tap into certain things. And I think you should keep an open mind about it. I'm not saying that you can actually go there. I don't know that you can actually go to a physical place, because if everything's now, this is all you got. But I think you can mind travel. And I would check out the Russians experiment, because they took it seriously, but they were also really obviously open with their information. I mean, the guy's talking about it. We look at Russia as this repressed, stupid, ignorant country. You'll hear politicians call it a gas station with nuclear weapons. Like, I mean, what an ignorant perception of Russia. It's far from a gas station with nuclear weapons. In fact, it's actually quite developed in the past 30 years since the wall fell. Uh, we might not like their values. Might be used to their way of life. And I'm sure they have propaganda too, and they want to control the people. One of their biggest elements is like a rebirth of Christianity and that kind of orthodox stuff now. But the fact that they were doing these experiments and having results in certain elements is very fascinating. But I think with our system, what our system likes is they like things to be reproducible for everyone, like a template. Like they want to have the same results. And I just don't think that that's realistic. Like to put you through a machine that says, okay, yes, there's similarities. Yes, certain things cause certain diseases, but there's also your individual mind thinking experience. And I think things work better on others. And look, these files aren't there for nothing. They're not there because it's all fake and gay and there wasn't anything to it. The CIA, they're looking into this stuff. They're looking into Tesla. They got his files because there's something there. And they just lie. You can't trust them because they lie so much. They're like, there was nothing there. But meanwhile, probably a lot of the stuff was there was why they have developed certain technologies with wireless technology, text message, mobile phones. Who knows what was there? I bet you they gave stuff they didn't feel of importance back to his family, and they kept what they were like, hey, we could use this for our military, because that's what they're interested in. They're interested in military control, weaponizing things, weaponizing weather, taking over other areas for resources. Oh, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. February. Yeah, absolutely. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. I want him to come on and talk about his haunted bar in February. Spooky stuff. Speaking of spooky stuff that happens from a distance. Absolutely, Rob. I'll send you a message. We'll do a show in February. If you guys like spooky bar stuff, we'll definitely do a show. 100%. So that's the whole idea. And we got off into a little bit of humor and satire. I thought that was funny. But all seriousness, all things aside, I think there is something to this. I think they have been doing things with students like Charlie Kirk, talent students. They've been going through the schools. Gen X probably experienced it in depth, absolutely in depth, about being plucked out as a talented or gifted student and then being put through this process of control, manipulation, education. The really good ones probably had a handler, got groomed. There's lots of people who went through. They were testing kids in my school, including myself, because I was testing high on the IQ scores. But this is a funny thing. Maybe there's a different timeline where I got into these programs. I caught measles and I was sick for at least 3 weeks. And then what happens when you get measles is now you have an immunity to measles, but it wipes out your cell memory for your immunity to other diseases. So I spent the next several years like sick all the time with tonsillitis, strep throat, constant sickness. So I was always out of school. God knows how I learned anything. And so I wasn't being tested as much. I was just not there because I was sick. So I don't know, maybe it was a good thing because honestly, I would not want to be in one of those schools. Being tested, being prodded, maybe even being abused. Who knows what happens to some of these kids? We know a lot of people are MK Ultra. There's people whose parents were MK Ultra back in the 60s. And I believe they were still doing stuff under the guise of gifted students, under the guise of nuclear weapons, under the guise of, just research in general, or hospitals, or even we're helping. The thing today is now they want to help children who are trafficked, but they're actually setting up reclusive places, I think, where they're doing stuff to them. It's gotten to a really crazy level where they're basically tricking the people to give up their children. We know Project Montauk. We know all this stuff happened. And now suddenly we're supposed to just be like, yeah, it's all done now. And they're all good and innocent, when it's clear they're just as crazy as ever. And that some weird stuff is happening and people are noticing because they're picking up the pace. And the best thing we could do is be off the internet. But I don't see that happening. But you never know, you guys. So that's the information I have to talk about on Project Looking Glass. And of course, you can't talk about it without talking about the other projects and weird stuff. And if you go listen to Candace, she's big on focusing on Satanists, because there are people who identify as Satanists that are in these things. But she also talks about the Moonies cult and how that was put in by the CIA post, nuking Japan. And that the Moonies took over in the politics. That was how the United States got control of Japan. And then the Moonies are now tied into TPUSA. It gets crazy. Don't go into any of these organizations. What I tell you, you have to, it's depressing, but don't give them your money. Don't give them your time. Don't wear their logos. Don't go to their mass events. Don't let your kids go into their programs, because it is all this crazy fake system that is totally divorced from nature and wants to unfold nature and control it. And I think by doing that, they either destroy it, therefore destroying themselves, because they rely on nature. They don't actually acknowledge how connected they are to nature. Sorry, I had a little dry throat there. None of these people acknowledge that we're connected to this ether. because they're trying so hard to create a fake one and connect us all to it. That's this harsh control. And who knows where it will end? Who knows what will happen? I don't pretend to know. I think the more you try to control it, the worse it becomes, the more they can try to control it, the timelines, the more the timelines go, oh, it just takes a little diversion and it gets right back on to where it's supposed to go. So the idea is they're staving it off. They've seen things, they know things, but they can't control it. And it's driving them mad. And they're doing crazier and crazier stuff in order to control how time rolls out and what is the future. I wouldn't worry about it too much, honestly. And if you can go and look at that book, and if you want to experiment with stuff yourself, go ahead. But absolutely remember, there are some physiological effects from doing this stuff. You can look at Faraday, cages, bags, whatever it is. But I think I'm right in my initial ascertainment. I don't know if that's the right word. My initial observation that we're experiencing phenomena less and we have less psychic abilities and less connectivity because of all of this technology. And this technology is a mimic of the organic world, and it's blocking our natural abilities. So if you can, guys, find different ways or leave in the notes, leave in the comments different ways to do this, I would really appreciate it. I want to hear your thoughts because I don't know all. I can come up with tapping, psyche, maybe looking into this, doing the energy work. The mace energy work might help with some people, especially if you feel like you're possessed or but just be aware. Nietzsche's quote, when you go looking for monsters or when you go looking into things, when you go looking into palantirs or voids, oftentimes what stares back at you could be an element of yourself or your old self or something that you're afraid of. Just be aware of that and don't project it on everybody else. Well, guys, that's the show. I'm going to get going. I don't know. I think I'm going to go clean the house, let the dogs out, maybe watch a movie. I really enjoyed this show, but I'm talked out. There's some people who do like 4 or 5, 9-hour streams. That's not happening here. I think I've talked enough. I think you guys might be a little bit sick of my talking, so we're going to tie it up. And I don't know when the next show will be. I'll always do the Sundays, so we'll see about a Wednesday or Thursday show. But I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you next time on Order of Velvet Bite.